First order of business is roll call. Ms. Hopper?
Teresa Taylor.
Here.
Rob Fechner.
Good morning.
Frank Ruffino for Fiona Ma.
Present.
Lisa Middleton.
Excused?
David Miller.
Here.
Arena Ortega. Here. Jose Luis Pacheco.
Present.
Ramon Rubalcava.
Here.
Shonda Wesley.
Excused?
Lynn Paquin for Betty Yee.
Here.
Madam President, all is in attendance with the excuse for Lisa Middleton and Shonda Wesley.
And we have a quorum. Hold on one second. Okay. We don't have, okay. First order is the approval of the March 16th, 2022 Board of Administration timed agenda. I need a motion.
Yes.
Motion made by Jose Luis Pacheco, seconded by Mr. Miller. All those in favor? Aye. Aye. All those opposed? None, and no abstentions. Thank you. Motion carries. Pledge of Allegiance. I didn't assign anybody, so I am going to ask Mr. Pacheco if you would like to lead us in the pledge.
I don't remember it all the time in my head.
You'll be all right. We'll help you.
Start us.
Okay.
Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Mr. Pacheco.
Thank you.
I knew you could do it. All right, on to the next item is the President's report. I want to welcome everybody. Good morning. Let me first start with congratulating Mr. Fechner and Mr. Rubalcava on their reelection as chair and vice chair of our Pension and Health Committee, and Lisa Middleton, who is not here right now, as my vice chair of board governance. And we certainly appreciate your leadership, and we look forward to working with you guys throughout the year. So this March is Women's History Month. It's a celebration of women and the contributions they've made to history, culture, and society. And it has been observed annually in the month of March since 1987. It's also time to reflect on an often overlooked achievements of women stretching back to the founding of the United States. Finally, I want to share the dates of our board offsite that will be held in person in July. Our meetings will be July 11th through the 13th at the Monterey Tides Hotel at 2600 Sand Dunes Drive in Monterey, California. Our agenda and topics of discussion will be available in June, closer to the event. And that's my report for today. Ms. Frost, would you like to make yours?
Yes. Good morning, President Taylor and members of the board. It's really a pleasure to be back in the CalPERS headquarters buildings for our board meetings this month. We've enjoyed seeing people in the hallways again. All of our team came back on March 1 in their new hybrid schedules. Hybrid meaning 3 days in the office, 2 days remote, other than our contact center, who has been designated, their positions have been designated as full-time remote. However, we have really adopted this idea of flexibility, and so even though their positions have been designated as 100% remote, they do have the choice on whether they want to work part-time in the office as well. I don't yet have the numbers of those who are working full-time remote versus hybrid out of the contact center, but I can share that with you as things start really settling in. We just started our return on March 1. Internally, we're calling this the CalPERS comeback. It's a theme that was created by our public affairs team. And we all have to remember that in the last 2 years, we've hired about 400 new team members at CalPERS. And they are really unaware of the CalPERS culture and some of our ways and the way that we interact with one another. So I think that's been a very successful campaign. Again, welcoming people back, reminding them about parking and all of the other protocols that we have here at CalPERS, including some increased security measures that we've had to put in place within the last 2 years. We also, as Anthony indicated, we did reopen all of our regional locations on March 1 to help our members with their retirement needs. Any members who would really like to schedule an appointment can do so through their My CalPERS account, or they can do that through our contact center. We have been offering in-person or remote appointments, and I think the last update I got from Anthony is it's about a 70-30 split. So for the past 2 years, I think our teams have continually been able to meet our customers' needs. Again, that's phone, virtual appointments, helping one another in the back office to service those front office appointments. We've also hosted several educational events to help our members better understand the benefits that they've earned through their public career. And then, again, those virtual options, we believe, have been so successful that we want to continue to offer those in the future as a service opportunity. And we'll track the uptake on that service, and we'll make some decisions around our regional locations as those measurements continue to mature. As many of you know, we did announce the appointment of our new Chief Investment Officer, Nicole Musico, to our team. We've had a chance to really share some of her background. You probably have seen some of the media. We did a little bit of a media blitz with her early on just to get people introduced to her background, her career, what really she has to offer to this position, and why she was the person for CalPERS. Nicole will start officially with us on March 28th. Which is just right around the corner. And so as we greet a new team member, we're also saying goodbye to another, Christian Farland, our Chief Information Officer, will be retiring on June 1st, and his last day in the office will be April 15th. Christian has been serving our members in his current role since 2018, but has been a CalPERS team member for over 20 years, starting here in 2002. Christian and his team did a remarkable job during the pandemic, within 48 hours, transitioning everyone from full-time office work to full-time remote work. The systems didn't miss a beat. His team was able to get all of the equipment that we needed for our team to be successful remotely, and he did all of this with a smile and a great sense of humor that we all have come to really enjoy. Christian is very well liked by his peers and by the organization, and we will miss him greatly. And personally, it's just been a pleasure to have him work on the executive team with us. It's really where we've been able to identify this quirky sense of humor that he has that we all, again, very much enjoy. So I'd like to just give a round of applause for Christian if we could. And I didn't mean quirky in a good way. Moving on to some current business, as you all are aware, the crisis in the Ukraine continues and really has been dominating the headlines for the past few weeks. And we had a lengthy discussion and an interesting panel conversation on Monday about the impacts to our investments. First and foremost, on behalf of CalPERS, I want to express our solidarity with the Ukrainian people who are suffering in the midst of this attack from Russia. While our investments in Russia represent an extremely small portion of the total fund, we continue to assess our options and follow all federal sanctions and directives from the United States Office of Foreign Asset Controls. Earlier this week, the ALM process for our affiliate funds, this will conclude our 4-year asset liability management cycle with the selection of the discount rate and the asset allocation for those affiliate funds. As we have throughout the ALM process, we have made stakeholder communications a high priority and hosted another webinar last week. That one was equally well attended by about 220 employers. I know that many of our stakeholders are eager to learn how the new portfolio decisions that were made back in November on the PERF will be implemented, and will be coming to the board from now through June on how we will implement and execute on that new strategic asset allocation. Speaking of stakeholders, we're currently in the midst of our annual stakeholder survey. This is a perception survey, which went out to a variety of CalPERS stakeholder groups, including our active members, our retired members, and our inactive members, as well as employers and leaders of stakeholder organizations. We did extend the return date on that survey just to get a little higher participation rates. We don't tend to get a very high participation rate, but it is important that we try to get something that is actionable from the results and from the feedback that we're getting from our stakeholders. So it does measure the perception of the stakeholders across that broad slice that I had indicated, really around healthcare costs and affordability, the overall trust in our organization, how we manage risk, customer service, and communications. We'll be compiling the responses to that survey in the next few months, and we'll bring the results back to you in June. Moving on to some outreach activities. Last week, Michael Cohen and I were able to visit with a group of executives from the Orange County Division of the Association of California Cities. They were here for their annual legislative day. This is a group that invites us every year, and we're really glad to have that opportunity with them. As the board has discussed, getting out to visit with our employers and our members is a high priority for me as well as the team. And then Michael and I were able to speak to them about our priorities throughout the next year. We also participated in a joint legislative information hearing hosted by the Assembly and Senate committees that oversee our pension, retirement, and labor issues. We were asked to address the opportunities and challenges ahead of CalPERS. Our remarks were focused on the current health of the fund, our risk mitigation strategies that were put in place to manage drawdown risk in the markets, and our sustainable investment strategies, which would include our work on climate. I also addressed the work we're doing in our health program to provide high-quality plans, but also to align our efforts with other major purchasers. And then finally, I did introduce the committee to our diversity, equity, and inclusion framework. Before I close, I'll note some of our upcoming CalPERS events. First up is the second annual Pathways for Women event. This will be held on August 23rd, once again in coordination with Women's Equality Day. We launched this event just for the first time last year to provide mentoring opportunities, but for women, or frankly men, seeking opportunities in their own careers, getting some mentoring from some keynote individuals we were able to access. So we don't have the speaker lineup yet. That's something that we are actively working on, but it will be again held on August 23rd at the Anaheim Hilton. And then we're also in the planning process for the 23rd Annual Educational Forum being held November 1st through November 3rd. That's also held in Anaheim, but at the Marriott in Southern California. After 2 years of virtual education forums, we're really looking forward to having an opportunity to interact in person. We'll have numerous educational sessions from our own teams, and we're planning to once again hold and host the exhibit hall. And I'll have more details on that event when registration opens. And so with that, President Taylor, that does conclude my remarks.
Oops. Thank you, Ms. Frost. We do have request to speak from Mr. Fechner.
Thank you, Madam President. I just want to also congratulate Christian on moving along, but I do have to say I'm losing another fellow Dodger fan, and there's few and far between, so it's hard to see that go. But congratulations. Enjoy your new jobs.
On behalf of the whole board, congratulations, Mr. McFarland. We really appreciate the work you've done. And I just wanted to mention with the start of our new CIO, we have, and it's Women's History Month, we have two powerful women now at the helm of CalPERS, and I just want to, acknowledge that, and I'm excited to be working with both of you. So moving on for our next agenda item 6, action consent items. I need a motion.
Move approval.
Moved approval by Mr. Fechner, seconded by Mr. Rubalcava. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Any abstentions? Thank you, motion carries. I have received nothing from the information consent items number 7 to be pulled off, so we will move on to committee reports. And hold on a second. Yeah. So our first committee report is Investment Committee. And for this, I'm going to call on Mr. Miller. And hold on, David. There you go.
Good morning, everyone. This is intended as a guide for what's coming up. So the Investment Committee met on March 14th, 2022. The committee approved the following: Agenda item 5B, the recommendation to maintain the investment committee's current delegation. Agenda item 7A, to select Wilshire Associates as the private debt consultant. Agenda item 7B, to adopt the recommended fixed income long liability benchmark weights for the affiliate funds and candidate portfolio A for each affiliate trust as its policy portfolio.
On motion from the committee, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries.
Excuse me. This is just a report out from the investment committee. It doesn't require any kind of vote because it's an independent committee.
All right, thank you.
Okay, moving on. The committee received reports on the following topics: a panel discussion on the risks and opportunities of investing in emerging markets, a review of staff's suggested changes to the total fund and global fixed income policies. The chair directed staff to contract with Wilshire Associates as the board investment consultant for private debt and begin the RFP process for the general pension consultant and the private assets consultant as soon as practical. Consolidate all asset class policies into the total fund policy and establish specific allocation range targets for each strategy and summarize program-related responsibilities within the private debt policy consistent with the private equity policy. The committee heard public comment on the following topics: investment strategy and risks, and CalPERS diversity, equity, and inclusion strategy. At this time, I would like to share some highlights of what to expect at the June Investment Committee meeting. The second reading of proposed changes to the total fund and global fixed income program policies, and a first reading of proposed changes to the private equity and real assets policies. The next meeting of the Investment Committee is scheduled for June 13th, 2022 in Sacramento, California. And that concludes my report, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. Next is Pension and Health, Mr. Fechner.
Thank you, Madam President. The Pension Health Committee met on March 15, 2022. The committee re-elected Rob Fechner as chair and Ramon Rubalcaba as vice chair of the PHBC. The committee recommends and I move the board approve the following. Agenda item 5C, approve staff's recommendation to make revisions to section 599.500, subdivision O of the PEMCA regulations to clarify parent-child relationships dependent eligibility.
On motion by the committee, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries.
Agenda item 7B, approve the extension of CalPERS Pharmacy Benefit Manager contract with Optum RX for additional 2 years. This extension improves current drug pricing, increases drug pricing transparency, and enables CalPERS to provide continuity of pharmaceutical benefit management services.
Okay, on motion by committee, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, motion carries. Go ahead.
Agenda item 7C, approve the release of a long-term care program third-party administrator solicitation. Approve a 1+1+5-year contract term if the LTC TPA contract is awarded to a new vendor. The 1+1 terms would allow for transition from the current vendor to the new vendor prior to starting the standard 5-year term. Approve a standard 5-year term if awarded to the incumbent. Approve extension to the current LTC TPA contract with Long-Term Care Group, Inc. for up to 24 months.
On motion from committee, all those in favor? Aye. Okay, all those opposed? Seeing none, motion carries.
The committee received reports on the following topics. The committee reviewed the PHBC delegation and has no recommended changes. The delegation will be presented for board approval along with other committee delegations at a subsequent meeting. The committee received information regarding health open enrollment results, proposed regulation for the definition of limited duration employment, and the retiree cost of living adjustment. The committee received public comment regarding the cancellation of phone-in comments. The chair directed staff to include cumulative totals for health plan enrollment for part of the open enrollment report and provide to board members. To take back committee recommendations to modify the current proposed regulation for the definition of limited duration employment. At this time, I would like to share some highlights of what to expect at the April PHBC meeting. The committee will meet in closed session to discuss an update on health plan rate renewal negotiation strategy. The next meeting of the PHBC is scheduled for April 19th, 2022 in Sacramento, California, and that concludes my report, Madam President.
Thank you, Mr. Fechner. Now, next up is board governance, and normally I would hand it over to the vice chair of board governance. She is currently excused, so I'll give the report for board governance. The board governance committee met on March 15th, 2022. The committee held an election for the board governance committee chair and vice chair. Teresa Taylor was elected chair. Ms. Middleton was elected vice chair. The committee heard and discussed recommendations on improvements to the board member onboarding process identified from the CalPERS 2021 board self-evaluation, which will be brought back for review and consideration. The next meeting of the board governance committee is tentatively scheduled for June 15th, 2022 in Sacramento, California, and that is all of that committee. And we move on to action items 9, agenda item 9, and the proposed decisions of the administrative law judge. And Mr. Fechner, please.
Thank you, Madam President. Good morning, Mr. Shaw. I move to adopt the proposed decisions at agenda items 9A1 through 10 as the board's own decisions with the minor modifications argued by staff to agenda items 9A1, 2, 7, and 10.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? No abstentions. Motion carries.
Agenda items 9B1 and 9B2. I move to deny the petitions at agenda items 9B1 and 2.
Okay. It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? All right, motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Fechner. Boy, this is moving along, guys. All right, we are moving into information agenda item 10, and that's our state and federal legislative updates. Mr. Brown, hi, how are you?
Good morning, Madam President and board members, and I'll do my best not to slow things down, okay? I'm Danny Brown, a team member, and this is the state and federal update. First, I want to start by mentioning that on Monday, you probably saw that Governor Newsom appointed Christy Bauma as his new legislative secretary. She has a long history of working on CalPERS issues and legislation, so I just want to congratulate her, and I look forward to working with her in her new role. Now, since our last meeting, the bill introduction deadline has passed, and committees are starting to hear bills in their policy committees. The next key deadline is April 29th. This is the last day for these new bills to pass out of their policy committee or committees. In your agenda material, you will have a list of all of the major bills that we're currently tracking. I'll just highlight a few of them that have been introduced since our last meeting in February. And I'll start with the 2 divestment bills, which of course has gotten the most press, and I'm sure you've read about. First up is SB 1173 by Senator Gonzalez, which calls for CalPERS and CalSTRS to divest from the 200 fossil fuel companies with the highest carbon content in their coal, oil, and natural gas reserves. This bill is modeled after the thermal coal divestment bill, but it has an annual reporting requirement rather than just a one-time report. This bill has been double referred to the Senate Labor, Public Employment, and Retirement Committee and the Senate Judiciary Committee, and we expect its first hearing to be on April 4th. You may have also seen that CalSTRS took an opposed position on this bill at their meeting on March 4th. The other divestment bill is SB 1328, authored by Senator McGuire and has over 60 co-authors. The bill requires CalPERS, CalSTRS, and the 37 county systems to divest from all companies with business operations in Russia or Belarus. The processes for identifying prohibited companies, engaging, divesting, and reporting appear to be modeled after the Sudan divestment statute. But I think it's important to point out that this bill goes beyond just Russian companies and beyond the actions that this board has already taken. It would require us to divest from any U.S. or international company that is doing business in Russia. And while a lot of them are pulling out, you can imagine the workload in trying to looking at our portfolio and trying to identify which companies may or may not still be doing business in Russia. In addition, the bill includes provisions that prohibits the controller and state agencies from making investments in vehicles issued or owned by the government of Russia, and prohibits state agencies from contracting with any company that conducts business with the government of Russia. This bill is set to be heard next Monday in the Senate Labor, Public Employment, and Retirement Committee. While these two bills have the highest profile, there's a couple other bills I just want to bring to your attention. First, AB 2782 by Assemblymember Mays would prohibit employers that participate in the CalPERS health program from providing any reimbursement or subsidy once a retiree becomes eligible to enroll in Part A or Part B. This prohibition would only apply to new employees hired after January 1st, 2023. You may recall that Assemblymember Mays had another bill last year that I would call a anti-CalPERS retiree health bill. That bill was never heard in committee. I would anticipate this bill would have the same fate, but I did want to bring it to your attention. And the next is SB 1168, authored by Senator Cortese, which only impacts retirees of local agencies. This bill proposes to annually increase the $500 post-retirement lump sum death benefit by CPI until it reaches the average post-retirement death benefit paid to all CalPERS members. Based on our preliminary calculations, we think that number is going to be somewhere in the neighborhood of $1,800. Moving to the federal update, not surprisingly, the administration has been focused on punishing Russia following their unprovoked invasion of Ukraine. Congress is also looking at ways to get involved in what has been described as trying to divorce Russia from Wall Street. In fact, tomorrow, the House Financial Service Committee will hold a markup of legislation that would strengthen and expand on the current sanctions invoked by President Biden and suspend debt service payments owed by Ukraine. It's not clear whether any of these bills will pass, but we do expect Congress to do something in this area, and we wouldn't be surprised if the final package of bills has something in there around divestment. My team will continue to work with the Investment Office to monitor any regulatory or legislative actions linked to the conflict in Ukraine that could impact our portfolio. Moving to the regulatory side, we did submit 2 comment letters last week. First, we submitted additional comments in support of SEC's proposed rule on pay versus performance. CalPERS had originally submitted comments on this proposal in 2015, but SEC has failed to implement this rule that was contained in the Dodd-Frank bill back in 2010. We continue to encourage the SEC to take action on this rule, which would help investors better assess governance and performance. In addition, CalPERS joined Covered California and California Department of Healthcare Services to express strong support for the National Committee for Quality Assurance's intent to expand race and ethnicity stratification to help increase transparency on differences in quality and reduce disparities in care among patient populations. This effort builds on NCQA's work dedicated to advancement of health equity in data and quality measurements. And then I'll end by just mentioning 2 upcoming comment opportunities. First, last week, the SEC proposed rules to enhance the standardized disclosures regarding cybersecurity risk management, strategy, governance, and incident reporting to public companies. And then next week, we anticipate that SEC will finally release its long-awaited rules on climate risk. And so we plan on engaging in both of those opportunities. And I will stop there, conclude my remarks, and answer any questions that anybody may have.
I don't believe I have any questions, Mr. Brown. Thank you very much for your report. Just making sure. All right, so we're moving on to 10B, summary of board direction.
I recorded no committee direction or board direction.
I didn't either. Okay. So we're going to move on to 10C, public comment. I have 2 requests to speak today. And so that's Mr. Jelensik and Mr. Behrens. Mr. Jelensik, you first. JJ first.
Okay. JJ Jelensik,
Health Benefits Director for RPEA. On Tuesday, Larry Woodson spoke very eloquently about the importance of call-in public comment, even if we are meeting in person. I understand the staff is working on it, but I want to reinforce that that's an important issue. It came up at both the stakeholders meeting briefing and at the retiree roundtable, and a number of people and organizations spoke emphatically about how important it is. So I really want to encourage you to pursue that. I want to make some process observations out of the Benefits and Health Benefits Committee, and it's relating to the parent-child regulation. That was done as a consent item, and if a item is important enough and non-routine enough that it requires a change in regulations, it probably should not be on the consent item. The committee voted to adopt the regulations, and I note that it was a committee to adopt the regulations, not to begin the process. I assume the intent was to begin the process, but that's not what either the committee or the board voted today. I would also point out that the attached regulation to that agenda item, I'm sure members of the committee know it because they reviewed the material, but some of the board members may not realize that paragraphs X and Y of the attached regulation are not consistent with the actions that the board had previously taken. So I bring that to your attention. And I also would like to point out that on 7A, which was beginning the process for the definition of limited duration, it was adopted by the committee to begin that process, but was not reported out. So I thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Jelinek. Mr. Behrens?
Good morning. Tim Behrens, California State Retirees. First of all, congratulating Teresa Taylor as a new president of the board, and Mr. Fechner as a vice president, and the two new members of the board, Jose Luis Pacheco and David, for your second round. Congratulations on your election results. We look forward to lively debate with the board over the next year, since we're back to face-to-face. Definitely agree with Mr. Jelensik's observation that we need to continue having the ability to call in and make public comment. I do have a question about agenda item 6B. Board travel approval. I didn't hear that mentioned. I don't know if there was any board travel. But my question is, before pre-pandemic, the board had stated that they were going to start asking members of the board when they traveled to give a brief overview of where they went and what they learned, and share that with the stakeholders. Is that still the intent of the board?
As far as I know, yes.
Okay.
I think most of this travel was like here.
Oh, okay, yeah, I get that. All right, thank you very much. Stay safe.
All right, thank you. All right, everybody, I see no other requests to speak, correct? All right. Ms. Frost, anything else? All right, so then the Board of Administration open session is adjourned. Are we moving into closed? Okay. We'll start closed in what, 15 minutes?
Chair Taylor,
Yeah.
we do need the board to vote to meet in closed session. That's item 11 on the board's agenda.
I'm not seeing that. Oh, yep, there it is, way at the bottom. All right, so I need a motion to meet in closed session. So it's moved by Mr. Miller, seconded by Mr. Ruffino. All those in favor to meet in closed session? Aye. All those opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. And now we'll give it about 10, 15 minutes to clear the room. The board met in closed session today pursuant to Government Code Section 11126, Subdivision C, 18A. During the closed session, the board received an information security update and cybersecurity briefing on the staff's work to protect our system. The board took no action, and that completes this month's agenda, and we are adjourned. Thank you, everybody. See you later. Have a good evening. Oh, there you go. I know it's not a me thing.